We're going to head straight to New York, where Michelle has much more.
Thanks, Phil. And I'm joined by Vidak Radonic of Beryl Consulting to get his insight on these growing relations between China and Russia. Vidak, good to have you on the show. Thanks for joining us.
Good evening, Michelle.
Vidak, China's direct investments in Russia shrank by 25% in the first half of the year. Why do you think this is happening?
It's a little bit puzzling because we all were thinking that actually should be otherwise, should be 25% higher. It could be because some banks maybe are not willing to work with Russia because of sanctions. There are multiple reasons. One of the reasons could be that, and another reason would be that it's a wait and see attitude because they didn't know what's going to happen with Ukraine crisis.
So there are reports that some of China's lenders have been discouraged or a little bit cautious of doing business with Russian banks and other Russian institutions because they don't want to isolate American and Western business partners. Do you think that's a factor?
Well, that's precisely what I just thought might be a reason. Another reason, as I said, is because Ukraine has issues and there has to be kind of like a wait and see approach maybe by Chinese leaders.
Still, overall, the Western sanctions against Russia over the Ukraine crisis has certainly driven China and Russia closer together. Would you say that they've backfired in that way?
Backfired?
That the sanctions have backfired in the sense that they're bringing Russia and China, two formidable world powers, as stronger allies.
Absolutely. I mean, the thing is, both Russia and China despise just superpower. One dual world. They're looking for multipolar world. They're looking for something that happened before 1990, when we had multipolar world, when there was a balance in powers. So there is a U.S. superpower these days, and it kind of like don't like that in any way.
Well, the Chinese and Russian ties are certainly growing. President Vladimir Putin has said that they've, quote, reached an unprecedented level in history. Trade between the two countries is around 100 billion. Putin is hoping to push that to 200 billion over the next few years. And about 1/10 of Russia's trade is with China. That's its global trade. Is Russia now in a position where it is just too dependent on China?
Well, I think China and Russia, they ironed all the differences in 2008, border disputes. So right now, in my opinion, they are natural partners. They share such a big border. They want to basically contrast the views of United States. So they're basically trying to be more allies. They are growing their relationships very strong. It's $40 billion, for example, is $400 billion to be exact, is the pipeline that they want to build in the future from 2018. 30 years in front, they're going to be building this huge project called natural gas exploration.
Well, you mentioned the natural gas project, but there have been some issues. There have been some differences that seem to have stalled that. What are the sticking points there?
Well, sticking point is what's the price of the project. So right now, China is waiting because it looks like oil, and they've been waiting rightfully because the oil has been going down.
Right.
Oil was in February. Oil was 45, then went back to 62, went back to 45. So that was a good kind of strategy for China to kind of wait and see approach. But I'm sure they're going to start the deal when there may be natural gas and oil goes down further.
Another big area of future cooperation is infrastructure. China's Silk Road initiative is supposed to benefit Russia in a very big way and also benefit Chinese railway constructors.
Absolutely. It's, you know, when I hear people saying this is just one-way street, it's not a one-way street. Russia is benefiting as well. Russia has very poor infrastructure right now, like United States used to have in 1940s, and they were building all these interstate highways. So what Russia is doing is basically trying to, build an infrastructure so it can flow, the economy can grow faster. On the other hand, Chinese, they want to also deploy engineers so they can also make money. The banking system will also benefit from it. And ultimately, they will be able to flow their goods to Russia and to Europe much more effectively.
Vitek, there are a lot of areas of cooperation here. Both are China and Russia are members of the BRICS New Development Bank. Russia is a founding member of the AIIB. There are synergies with regards to their membership with APAC. They're both in the UN Security Council. They're both members of the G20, and they seem to be in alliance in a lot of matters, as we said, a lot of multilateral trade ties that benefit both parties here. Is this relationship sustainable? What could possibly derail this budding bromance, if you will, between Russia and China?
Well, I think these are both kind of, I don't want to say autocratic governments, but they're different way of managing a government than here in the United States, which is, let's call it Western world, EU, and the United States. So just to repeat, to answer your question, your second part was...
Well, what could derail this? What could make
derail
this...
is the only... I mean, there are two personalities. It seems they clicked with each other, the two strong leaders. Putin is, I think, very strong leader, has a very high approval rate. And President Xi of China also has a very high approval rate in its own country. So the only thing that can derail is if Putin gets out of power or something happens with Xi, you know, I think that would be the only thing that would derail.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much for your insight, Vitek Radonjic, Managing Partner of the Beryl Consulting Group.